sorry, let me just get this into a state that's a little bit easier to explain. And sorry for this shameful plug for Jobs at Glide. We are hiring, so please go to QuickType and click on this banner that's very obnoxious. Yeah, so I mentioned Thomas's work on type providers. For those of you who don't know about type providers in F#, Thomas, please forgive me if I don't explain this correctly, but type providers generate at build time a static type. So for example, you can create a type provider for an XML file, and you point at the XML file, a sample file, and the type provider will actually like create the static type for your environment right there so you can start using it. And one of the most useful type providers is JSON. So you can create, you can define a type by giving it the sample data. So you can say, I want a type of this JSON file, and then you will get a static type that represents that JSON file, and you get autocomplete in your environment. And so that was very exciting to me as amateur F# programmer. And I was learning Swift, and I had to build all of these model objects by hand to create an app I was working on back in the day, and it was really tedious. And I talked to Mark about it, and we said, this is not a problem that humans should be preoccupied with, translating JSON into type definitions. So we worked on this project called QuickType. It's open source, and it's a JavaScript library with a CLI command, but we have a website as well that's interactive and fun to use. I wonder if I can hide comments. Don't worry about it. So what you do is you give QuickType JSON, and it does type inference, and then it generates code in whatever language you choose. We support a bunch of them: Haskell, TypeScript, even dynamic languages like Ruby. But I'll just do Swift because its type declarations are very easy to read. So if you have some JSON and you say like, name is David, obviously let name string. So it infers the type and it emits them in your language of choice. And this plain types only switch that I just turned off. Another thing that's very important about QuickType is it also creates all the marshalling functions from JSON string to structs, in-memory representations of those types and back in every language to help you parse and then write out those types. It's not just the type definitions. But the interesting thing about QuickType was like all the corner cases we found. So one thing about JSON is it's like extremely heterogeneous. So you might have an array of numbers in your JSON sample called things. So in Swift, I'm sorry, I didn't practice this demo at all, but I'm going to switch to interfaces only in TypeScript to make this a little more clear. So this sees that we have this sample object where the name is David and things is an array of 0, an array with the number value 0. But if we also include the string 0, it's going to create a union type. And most people would expect, oh, it's going to like uptype to object and I've lost type information. But QuickType preserves that and includes it in this way. And also, if we had an object of, who is bar, it will create another type and include that in the union. And what's very important about this and my previous comment about like the marshalling code is in languages that don't natively support types like this, Swift sort of does. So in Swift, we make a thing element. We don't have, based on this name, we create a thing element, and then it creates these case classes inside of a union type. And then it does all this complex marshalling. But in languages that don't have this stuff, like Java, for example, it will create like a synthetic, maybe Go is better. It will create a synthetic union type. So here we have thing elements again, and it's a struct with pointers in Go, which doesn't really guarantee that it's exactly one of these things, but you can see how, we try our best to represent that type information all the way through the program. And then let's go back to TypeScript. We just did a lot of very interesting things in this project. So here's JSON data with temperatures. You have a top level object with two properties, description and data. And data is this very interesting object where the keys are these sort of stringified numbers. And QuickType can understand that those keys are dynamic and that data's type is an object, is a map with dynamic keys and not an object with fixed properties. So if you turn off detect maps, what you get is like the naive interpretation of the sample data where, oh yeah, data is this type with three properties, 189512, 189612. You know, that's not what you wanted at all. So we have a really cool blog article on how we did that. And Mark, any other cool features of QuickType I should show?
Oh, there's much more cool stuff, but we don't have the time.
Yeah,
One
there's
of the
enum
things
detection.
yeah, there's
That's
enum
cool.
detection, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff that goes on like underneath. Unfortunately, I wish I had like 5 more years to work on QuickType because there's so much more to do. I just started working on this very cool feature that I call transformers, which lets you do stuff like actually transform the types, basically have two different type representations, the serialized and the internal. So if you do just one quick thing, put in, go back to your original object where you just have one field with an array with a number and a stringified number, and then switch to C#.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I only implemented the transformers in C# and Python, unfortunately, so all the other languages don't get them. But in those languages, Glide is smart enough to figure out that, sorry, QuickType smart enough to figure out that these are all numbers actually. And then it has this transformer mechanism inside that can turn the serialized one, which is actually string or number, into the internal one, which is just number. And the transformer kind of goes both ways. You can go from one to the other. Of course, it doesn't know whether a string should be a number or like the number should be a string. So when you serialize, it always goes to number, I think. But yeah, and there was so much more to do here. Like we could have figured out, oh, like when is your JSON actually supposed to be a discriminated union, right? Because you have one type field and then all the others are depending on which type field you have different types, and then it could deserialize that into different classes. But you know, we didn't get to do any of that because we started this other project called Glide.
Yeah. So for example, I mean, this isn't quite what Mark was saying, but you can see that this understands that age is an optional property of a thing because it's unified them in this array because there's some significant overlap. But age was only present in one, so it's optional in the thing type. So yeah, if you work with JSON and need to parse it, try QuickType. It's really fun.